Welcome to another episode of Cinema Cult, where we talk all about the stories on the big and small screen and their impact on our lives. Today we will focus on film soundtracks, how they emotionally affect us, and consider some score music that has made it big all on their own. So who are your favourite film score composers? We'll also talk about some successful songs from the big and small screen that have broken out on their own since their release. Let's dive right in. There's something about movies that seems to attract just about everybody. We go into the cinema or turn on our TVs and there it is. There's a story somebody has told, a story that has captured our attention and made it memorable. But what is it that actually makes movies that impactful on our lives? And sure, we could discuss the fact that it's a great story, amazing cast. There's an awful lot of elements to go through it. But, and hear me out on this, music. The importance of music and sound effect all together makes a movie stand out in ways it would never stand out on its own. Take Hans Zimmer and John Williams. They have basically composed my childhood. Star Wars, I can watch almost every day, even now. And Hans Zimmer is a late comer to my collection of favorite composers, but he's done remarkable work on the likes of Da Vinci Code, and right now he's working on Dune. There's a lot of ways he's actually made a mark into my life, and I hadn't originally even realized that was the case. Let's stay on the topic of Hans Zimmer a little bit longer. So, the first time I'd ever heard about him was after watching the Da Vinci Code. Now, there was this story that I picked up because it had a great short description and it had an amazing cast, especially Tom Hanks. But I hadn't expected the music to have such an impact on me the way John Williams has through multiple movies. And as you watch the whole thing, you don't even realize just how powerful the sounds are. The right kind of film score blends in with the movie so well that it gives you goosebumps every time you watch it. The wrong kind of music can just destroy a movie, or it can make it very, very obvious there's music there. I think it took 2, 3, maybe 4 times of me watching that movie before I actually went online and who wrote this? Just such power to it every time I watch it. And especially if you take the ending of the movie. It's about 4 minutes long, and there's this whole thing at the end where the story's been concluded. The girl in the movie has been saved by her family. Sorry, no spoiler. And Tom Hanks' character is about to go back to his life after the crazy adventure he's just had that he probably never expected in his life to have. And he's just doing a mundane thing. He has the TV in the background and he's shaving, and all of a sudden he cuts himself and the music starts very, very quietly, and it's like these 4 minutes are a revelation of the character. It's almost like you can hear the sound of his mind working out what he has just realized. He's grasping something that has eluded him throughout the whole movie. Now, this story has an awful lot of concepts that are glared upon by some people, let's choose that word, but it is an interesting assessment of all these mad theories into the Christian religion, which is probably the why I picked it up, because I absolutely adore history. But these 4 minutes are probably the best part of the movie, and it is everything to do with the actual music that we're listening to. There's a growth in sound, there's changes, there's outside noises that are affecting the sound that die out when the character is all on his own, and this great monumental revelation when he reaches his destination. It's just, to this day, even right now when I'm talking about it, I'm actually getting a bit of goosebumps.
Really gave me goosebumps with the music is Dune, with the soundtrack, because it really sets the scene and lets you in on the atmosphere.
Today we're talking about the emotional impact of music in film. Stay tuned for more. How many of us have actually cried at the ending of Terminator Judgment Day? On the list of my top 20 favorite movies of all time, Terminator Judgment Day is very high up. There's something about the whole concept of artificial intelligence, machines, the time travel. Also, Back to the Future is another one of the movies on that very list. But there's beautiful music in that film that just kind of leads you through the storyline. And I honestly think the end has that music on purpose, because intended to make you feel for the T-800. And it's really meant to get you to get emotional about it because this is a machine and we've been running from machines and they've been trying to kill the characters and it's all these things. And he's now sacrificing himself for the humans that he's been with. And it's just such a heartbreaking story. And honestly, I was of the same mind as John when I was a child, crying and saying, no, don't go. But again, without the music, this scene would not be as impactful as it actually is. And the funny thing is, in order to actually talk about this today, I had to look it up. The name of the man who composed that music is called Brad Fiedel. He's actually written an awful lot of film scores that I have heard but never actually thought about it. So, for example, Under Siege with Steven Seagal. I love that movie. My mother loves that movie. It is an all-around brilliant, well, for us it's a family movie, but I've never looked up the music. It just kind of works with the film. And then another one that I actually like watching is Rasputin the Dark Servant of Destiny with Alan Rickman. Now, my generation will know that Alan Rickman is famous among other roles for Harry Potter. But I really enjoyed this story because, again, I love history, any discussion about history, and I actually spent an awful lot of time studying the Romanovs as a child. So it's a very TV movie, but he is a very, very strong actor that really elevates the story. And the music is really, it fits the movie itself. Going back to the topic of this podcast, Hans Zimmer. I've never looked up who's written the score for Terminator Judgment Day until today, but I did actually look up some of the things that Hans Zimmer has been credited for. In more recent times, this is Dune. They've actually done part 1 and part 2, and the music is absolutely gorgeous. Then The Dark Knight with Christian Bale had really amazing music as well. And it is a very different type of music and a type of movie from both Dune and Da Vinci Code, and yet Hans Zimmer just delivers brilliantly. Lion King, I haven't had a chance to watch the live version. Turns out that Hans Zimmer actually wrote the score for Terminator Genesis, which has got an awful lot of slack as a movie and the whole later franchise of Terminator, but the music is still very much on point, and I would say it was a very good judgment call to bring in Hans Zimmer to do this latest version, especially considering this movie marks the return of James Cameron as well. So it's sort of meant to be like going back to the classics but updating it. So I suppose it really fits to have Hans Zimmer there. Another movie that I absolutely adore is Divergent. Now, this is young adult science fiction. It's actually great music throughout the 4 movies. It's very sad that they didn't actually finish it. Then Inception. This movie was a wild ride from start to finish, and it never actually dawned on me that it's Hans Zimmer's fault if you think about it. Like, some of those very trippy scenes with those strong music, like, they wouldn't be that impressive. They would just be strange if it wasn't for the actual music. So it really does make a huge difference of what's composed, what is matched to the scenes, what is matched to the movies. So it makes an awful lot of difference. What sort of notes are written, what sort of music is put together, who plays the music. There's an awful lot of factors that go into it, but Hans Zimmer really makes brilliant work, and you have all these giant orchestras performing to create this gorgeous music. And we could keep going. I absolutely love Prestige. That's again Christian Bale and Scarlett Johansson and Hugh Jackman. Very good music. I Am Sam is actually a very endearing movie with Sean Penn, and never knew Hans Zimmer had actually done it. In fact, I don't think I knew his name at the time I had watched that movie, or As Good as It Gets, another movie that I just didn't know Hans Zimmer was, but I do remember that the music was absolutely brilliant. And then if we go back to my childhood favorites, John Williams, his list is very long as well. Put aside Star Wars for a moment. We have Saving Private Ryan, Indiana Jones, Born on the 4th of July, Superman, Catch Me If You Can. I cannot forget E.T. under any circumstance. But yeah, just John Williams and Star Wars New Hope. The very beginning scene when Darth Vader steps onto the spaceship, the doors open, he's in black. The whole room is actually, the hallway is sterile white. That music is one of the earliest memories I have in my life. And it is the very beginning of my love for science fiction. And in thinking about this topic, I did wonder, what if that didn't happen? What if my 8 years older brother did care that his little sister, I imagine I was 3 or 4 at the time, I'm not even sure, But what if he cared that I was in the room, much like he cares now as a parent that his son can't watch certain things, and he didn't expose me to them? Would I have the same amount of love for science fiction as I do now if it wasn't for that scene with John Williams, with Darth Vader and everything? I don't know. I actually am not sure. And I do give him credit for the passion I have for science fiction. And I have so a good few times in a lot of my blogs or even academic writing. So give credit where credit is due. Well, that was a lot to say. We'll be right back after this sponsor.
Mornings can be rough. But at Brewhaven, we make sure your day starts with the perfect cup. Whether you're rushing to work or just need a midday boost, we've got you covered with freshly brewed coffee and homemade pastries. Stop by on your way and get your caffeine fix. Visit Brewhaven and Main Street and grab a coffee that's as strong as your work ethic. Your first cup is half price this week. Don't miss out.
Well, that ad certainly didn't help my coffee addiction. Are you a parent? Do you have a small child at home? Is that small child absolutely obsessed with Frozen and let it go years later? I actually got a niece that still absolutely adores Elsa and Anna. But what is it about that song that made all those children go absolutely bananas for it? It is a beautiful and powerful song. However, would I compare it to Time of My Life from Dirty Dancing? Oh, absolutely not. But that brings us into our third topic here. What is it about a song stands out so much that it becomes a single all on its own? Like, did you know that Let It Go got an Academy Award for Best Original Song? But then think about some other amazing songs that have made movies. My Heart Will Go On made Titanic, and I will fight you for it. Titanic is epic and it has a brilliant score. But I went to the movies to see that song, and I was actually very annoyed. Didn't even realize that all these songs that came out of movies were not actually in the movie. So this song plays and the end credits, and they made a TV spot for it, but it's only bits of it that are actually in the movie, which was actually annoying. But hang in there for a little second, because I'm going to go to a very important blast from my own past. And this is the only example I will do from the TV world. And I will butcher this name, Sarah McLachlan's Full of Grace. The only time I have ever heard the song Full of Grace featured at the end of season 2 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, becoming part 2. At the very end, there are these beautiful and sad scenes of the main character watching her friends walking away, getting on a bus. There's this whole thing, and Full of Grace plays out through all of them. And I can tell you that, and this was VHS time, I rewinded that tape so many times. And I'm not saying, over the course of a week. I'm talking the moment I watched it, rewind and rewind. My parents were already annoyed. I was obsessed with this show. This made it way worse. It absolutely threw me in a frenzy. Girls didn't go mental over songs like they did with Frozen, but I had gone in absolute frenzy over Full of Grace. If I compare Let It Go to Full of Grace, I can understand the frenzy. Sometimes, somehow, it just fits, and there's no way of properly explaining just why something is so good to you. Which brings me to one more piece of music that I would like to discuss, and it probably shows my lifelong obsession over this movie, Beetlejuice. So, a long time ago, Tim Burton made a great movie. They made a scene where, spoiler alert, the ghosts possess the family and their friends at a dinner party, and they dance to a very well-known song, and most of us know how this goes, even if not everybody's actually watched the movie. Funny thing is, Tim Burton was about to cut that song. He thought it didn't work, and somehow he was convinced to keep it, and it made this movie, basically. Now, when they came back for Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, the sequel, you wondered if it was going to happen. If he was not only going to make a sequel for the movie, but if he was going to make a sequel for the montage. And he did not disappoint. Now, some people may not agree with this, but the song chosen, it's called MacArthur's Park by Richard Harris, the Richard Harris of Harry Potter for the younger generation. It was released in 1967. And according to some stories there, Tim Burton had the record, invited his team over, and they listened and they all agreed that it was a good choice. But let's talk about why it's a good choice, because there's some complaints about, oh, why is the whole song in the actual movie? Or why that song? Why not something else? It doesn't work the way the other song did. But you know what? If you listen to the lyrics, the sheer goofiness of the lyrics of "the cake is melting, someone left it in the rain, I cannot take it, took so long to bake," and then you have an actual visual of a disgusting moldy cake melting compared to what Beetlejuice used to do in the first movie. Why is that so out of character? Or when he talks about, "You'll never catch me looking at the sun," while he's dancing with Lydia and his eyes start to pop up. He's a very visual guy. The first time he introduced himself to Lydia, he motioned her to turn around and there's an actual beetle saying, "Hey, how you doing?" So yeah, he's a very, very literal ghost or demon. And that song is just so beautiful. And it's that song that made me realize that Beetlejuice Beetlejuice is not the sequel exactly of the first movie. It's actually a sequel combining both the movie and the cartoon, which was so brilliant. And it features such a different relationship between Beetlejuice and Lydia. And then you have MacArthur's Park, which it's like a beautiful, beautiful ending. Like, he wasn't part of the song in the first movie, but when he decided to make his own musical, he made it his own. Maybe you haven't watched the sequel. Maybe you're unsure. So maybe you have absolutely no idea. There is a bit of a craze on MacArthur's Park and the actual footage from the movie that's featuring on YouTube. So you should go online and check it out, because it is one of the goofiest things he has done.
I watched Gladiator 2, really motivational movie. The music, when very first war scene, when drumming made it feel very personal, as if I was like part of the army being invaded of. And like, because most of the music did have words, but it was just like instruments and the drum. They were just like the way they just hit across your eardrums, and it just made the whole scene very realistic and, a huge impact. Because even when he was given his war speech, it made me feel as if I was there with him about to go into war. So I'd say that gave me a lot of goosebumps, because I was very motivated, and like I just felt like I'm gonna go to war with him. So I'd say, yeah, that was one of the key moments, like the highlight. Before every war, the music they put on, the soundtrack, and just the words behind what he was saying was very impactful.
There was a lot thrown into this episode, so it's a bit difficult to try to summarize it, but in very short sentences: Hans Zimmer rock, John Williams is awesome. Did you know that Brad Fiedel made the score for Terminator Judgment Day? Let It Go is a pretty big phenomenon. And have you watched Beetlejuice Beetlejuice 2 yet? Right, that was a really, really short version. But basically, names like Hans Zimmer and John Williams have made a huge impact on films today. And we could actually go into an even deeper topic right now, because Hans Zimmer is about to be robbed from an Oscar on the count that Dunes Part 1 and Part 2 are two separate movies. Like, they're both very, very long movies, but apparently the Academy Award is going to disqualify him from being a nominee because it's a Part 2, which is causing outrage among the actors. And I'm furious too. But what they do is absolute magic. The songs in Terminator are just one example where work like songs in Terminator Judgment Day, where the songs themselves are immortalized, but you might not even know who actually composed the work, because it's not John Williams, Hans Zimmer, or somebody like that, but the music is absolutely brilliant. And then we also talked about Academy Award winner Let It Go, Celine Dion, which was still disappointing. I expected the song to be in the movie, like in Dirty Dancing or some other movies like Beetlejuice, the first part where they actually do a whole song and dance. Maybe Kate and Leo didn't have to do a song and dance, but at least it would have been nice to have a little montage with the full song, or a third of the song, it doesn't matter. And then lastly, we also talked about Richard Harris, without going into the Harry Potter franchise, which is very difficult for me. But the fact that he's actually sang a song in 1969 called MacArthur's Park, it's hard to imagine that the man in Harry Potter with his big long beard, wacky hat, perfect wizard of a character, that actor once sang a song like MacArthur's Park, which is probably one of the goofiest songs that I've ever heard and is currently my ringtone. So yeah, a lot of songs break out. A lot of songs make a lasting impression on us. All of them have a strong emotional impact. They are what forms the bond between the viewer and the actual project, be it TV or film. And even if you're not completely aware of it, like, that's part of the reason why you went, oh wow, that was a great movie. If you put any other song that wasn't made for that movie, it would actually look ridiculous. Even worse if there was no music. Jeez, I couldn't even imagine that.